Welcome back. We are doing 2.4 part 2 in this video. 2.4 deals with writing equations of lines, and this video will continue, but we are going to focus on writing equations of parallel and perpendicular lines. Okay, so take notes. 2.4. So this is part 2. Writing equations of lines. With an emphasis on parallel and perpendicular lines. Okay, so let's go ahead and recall what we said about parallel and perpendicular lines. Okay, so we said parallel lines have same slope. And we said perpendicular lines have negative reciprocal slopes. Okay, so remember negative reciprocal slopes. So if one line has a slope of 2/3, then a line that's perpendicular to it would have a slope that's opposite sign, so negative, and then flip, 3/2. Okay. All right. So let's do a quick exercise here. Determine if parallel, perpendicular, or neither. Okay, so suppose that we have these two equations. Suppose that we have, here, we'll do two examples here. So let's suppose we have 3x plus 2y equals 18. And suppose that we have y equals negative 2/3 x plus 1. Okay? All right, so over here, this equation is written in slope-intercept form. So here, it's easy to tell what the slope is here, right? Okay, and when we're trying to figure out if two lines are parallel or perpendicular, then we want to know their slopes, because if they have the same slope, then we can say that they are parallel lines, right? If they have negative reciprocal slopes, then we can claim that these are perpendicular. So it's very important when you're being asked to determine if it's parallel, perpendicular, or neither. It's important to be able to identify the slope of each equation. For the second equation over here, negative 2/3 is the slope, okay? But up here, it's written in standard form, so identifying the slope is not as easy as the second equation, okay? But let's go ahead and write down what the slope is here. So for this one, our slope is negative 2/3. Okay, so for this one over here, I need to rewrite this. I need to rewrite as y equals mx plus b. Okay, so let's go ahead and move down here. Here's the work. So 3x plus 2y equals 18. So I basically have to solve for y here. So I'm going to subtract 3x on both sides. So I get 2y equals negative 3x plus 18. Okay, and then divide everything by 2. Okay, so I get y equals -3/2 x plus 9. Okay, so here, now I can see what the slope is. So here, my slope is -3/2, right? So I have this slope and I have this slope. Okay, they are reciprocals of each other, but they aren't negative reciprocals because remember, for it to be perpendicular, they have to have opposite signs, and they don't. They're only reciprocals of each other. So this here, they are not perpendicular and they are not parallel. Okay, so here the answer is neither. Okay. And let's have a look at this next example, B. Suppose that I have this equation, 4x minus 8y equals 8. And suppose I have this one, y equals -2x plus 3. Okay, so again, between the two of these, this second equation, since it's written in slope-intercept form, I can identify the slope very easily. Okay, so here, my slope is -2. This one, this top equation, is in standard form, so I cannot identify what the slope is right off the bat, so I need to rewrite. Rewrite as y equals mx plus b. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the work down below. Okay, so 4x minus 8y equals 8. So I need to solve for y, so I'm going to go ahead and subtract 4x on both sides. Okay, so I get -8y equals -4x plus 8. Okay, now I'm going to divide everything by -8. Everything. Okay, and let's see what we get here. So I get y equals, okay, that's going to reduce to positive 1/2. And that's going to reduce to -1. Okay. All right, so now that it's written in y equals mx plus b form, I can identify the slope. So here I can see that the slope is 1/2. Okay, all right, so let's compare the two slopes. So up here, this one has a slope of -2, and this one here has a slope of positive 1/2. So we see that they are reciprocals of each other because remember, 2 can be written as a fraction 2/1. Okay, so we see they are reciprocals of each other, and we also see that they are opposite signs. Okay, so they are negative reciprocals of each other. So these two lines are perpendicular. Okay. All right, so again, you can tell if they're parallel or perpendicular by looking at their slopes. Okay, so parallel lines have the same slope. Perpendicular lines have negative reciprocal slopes. Okay, this section deals with writing equations of lines. So let's go ahead and look at some examples where we have to write equations of lines that are parallel and or perpendicular. Okay. Let's take a look at this example. Write an equation of a line that is perpendicular to 4x minus y equals 7 and passes through to 5. Okay. And let's write the answer in slope-intercept form. Okay, slope-intercept form is the y equals mx plus b form. Okay. All right, so if you remember, to write an equation of a line, we need a slope and we need a point. We have a point, but we need the slope. Okay, right here, let me right here, this here is your clue to the slope. Okay. All right, so write an equation of a line that is perpendicular to that equation. Okay, so we already know that if it's perpendicular to this, then they have negative reciprocal slopes. Okay, so if I know the slope of the perpendicular here, then I know the slope of my line. Okay, all right, so let's take a look here. Okay, so slope of 4x minus y equals 7. Okay, so I need to get the y by itself, so I'm going to go ahead and subtract 4x. Don't forget that negative in front of the y. Divide everything by -1. So y equals 4x minus 7. Okay, so I know the slope of this equation. So the slope of this equation, m is 4, okay, which means my slope is going to be the negative reciprocal. So this is the slope I'm going to use. Okay. If it said parallel, right? If this had said parallel, then fine, you can use the same slope that this equation has. But it is perpendicular, so you cannot use 4. You have to use the negative reciprocal. Okay? All right, part 2. All right, so my slope is -1/4. And I need a point. It's right there, 2, 5. Okay, and so now I can use y equals mx plus b to solve for b. Because remember, this is x, this is y, so, and there's m. So y is right here, m is right here, x is right there. Okay, so let's plug in. Y is 5, m is -1/4, x is 2 plus b. Don't be afraid of the fractions. Reduce if you can. This is like 2/1. So 2 here cancels. So I get 5 equals -1. 2 is on the bottom plus b. Okay. Solve for b. Add 1/2. So that's 5.5 equals b. Okay. All right. So there you go. Once you have m, and you do, once you have these two things, then you have your equation. Y equals m, which is -1/4 x, plus b. So I'm fine if you write plus 5.5. You can write that. This is fine, but your homework quizzes and your tests are all through WebAssign. So see what kind of answer it accepts. You can write it like that. Or maybe they want this written as an improper fraction, not a mixed number. So 11 halves, okay? To get 11 halves, you do 2 times 5 plus 1 is 11. Denominator stays the same. Okay, so again, not sure what WebAssign will take. It might take both. Okay, let's take a look at another example. Okay, so write an equation of a line that is parallel to x equals 5 over 4y minus 2 and passes through 4, negative 2. Okay? All right. So again, we need slope and a point. We have a point. We don't have slope, but we use this piece of information right there to figure out, okay, the slope. So again, this is our clue. Ooh, I don't want to write through the 4. Okay, so this is our clue to our slope. Parallel, so we're going to get the same slope. Now, if you notice, it's not written in slope-intercept form. It's not even written in any particular form that we're familiar with, right? So we are going to rewrite it. Okay, so let's take that funny-looking equation and rewrite it so we can find the slope. All right, so x equals 5/4 y minus 2. And in order for us to get the slope, it needs to be written in slope-intercept form where the y is by itself. Okay, all right, so one thing we can do here is clear our fractions. Different ways to start this. So maybe some of you guys were like, oh, I'm going to add 2 to both sides. You can do that, okay? Or maybe some of you guys were like, I'm going to multiply everything by 4/5. You can do that too, okay? I'm going to start by getting rid of my fractions, okay? So I'm just going to go ahead and start by multiplying everything by 4. Okay. Oh, okay. I'll close it. Thanks. Okay. My garage is open, my neighbor said. Okay. All right. So 4x equals 5y minus 8. Okay. So this makes it a little bit easier to work with. So I can go ahead and solve for y, add 8 to both sides. Okay. 4x plus 8 equals 5y. And then divide both sides by 5. So 4/5 x plus 8/5 equals y. So here I can see what the slope is. So here the slope is 4/5. Okay. So here m is 4/5, right? And since we are parallel, we have the same slope. So I am also going to use 4/5. If this were perpendicular, then I would have to use -5/4. Okay. Remember, parallel, same. Perpendicular, negative, and flipped. Okay. All right. So we're going to be using the same slope. So m equals 4/5. And let's get our point. So let me scroll up to see what it is. 4, -2. Okay, 4, -2. All right, so we're going to use y equals mx plus b. So y is -2, because remember, this is your x, this is your y. M is 4/5. X is 4. Too bad it wasn't a 5. Plus b. Okay, so we get -2 equals 16/5 plus b. Where's my b? Okay. Let me scroll up a little. Okay, so at this point, if you're comfortable with working with fractions, then just go ahead and minus 16/5 on both sides. If you're not comfortable with fractions, then you could clear your fraction by multiplying everything by 5, okay? Or you can always use a calculator, okay? All right. Here, let's say you don't have a calculator, you don't feel like dealing with how to work the fraction buttons on your calculator. All right, if you want, you can just clear your fractions then if you're uncomfortable with them. Okay, just multiply everything by 5 and bam, it's gone. Okay, so you could do that. However you want to do that. Okay, so -10 equals 16 plus 5b, solving for b, subtract 16. You get -26 equals 5b. Divide both sides by 5. Okay. And you should get -26/5 equals b. All right, there we go. We have our m and we have our b. So we can write the equation y equals 4/5 x minus 26/5. And that would be the answer. Okay. All right, so that is it for writing equations of parallel and perpendicular lines. There is a part 3, which takes a look at graphing using that shortcut that probably some of you guys are aware of, where we graph y equals, we graph this, we go to the y-intercept, and then we just do our rise and our run to plot the second point. Okay, anyway, so that's going to be the third video. All right, you guys, again, if you have any questions or if you want me to go further with any of these topics, just email me or send me a message by replying to any of my announcements through the Remind app. Okay.